What's going on, guys, and welcome back. So, been a little bit slow around here lately, but we're headed into September. It's been a bit since we did one of these, and I think it's about time we do it again, and that is our tier list. We try to make this as relevant as possible, so we actually have 23 decks here today: tier 1, 2, 3, and Rogue. Any of these decks can do really well with the right pilot and the right settings. I think they're all very capable decks of, like I said, doing well in the right environment. And for those of you who would like, you saw the title maybe, there's a charity tournament going on in Dragon Rider Games starting September 18th. You saw some of the details. I'll put them on the screen right here. So it is a single elimination tournament where we're going to start the 18th. Each round gets 3 days to complete. Half the pot will come back to the player base, half the pot will go to our friend who is battling cancer, and there's also a one-of-a-kind playmat. Anyone who plays will also get the field center. So again, top 4 get part of the payout in the regards of 30%, 10%, 5, and 5 respectively for 1st through 4th. If you want to have fun, it's on Dueling Book. If you want to play for a good cause, come check it out. Dragon Rider Games. The event for that also linked down below in the description, so make sure you check that out. And without further ado, what decks can compete nowadays? So we're not going to sit here and spend 30 minutes on this like sometimes. ABC, it's Rogue. Like, not much has changed from past formats. ABC is just a decent deck. I don't want to say it's like really strong, because it's not. If I say that about all these decks, like, I'd be lying to you guys. It's a really good deck though in regards to like all the possibilities. It's pretty much any of these Rogue decks. Again, if you have a good pilot playing ABC, you can do, well, I mean, a lot. Like, whether you're making like Appaloosa, they can abuse Dragoon, they can just the targeting banished with a bunch of hand traps or regular traps. Like, there's a handful of different routes. You can go Dogmatica, because it works, by the way. You can go like a synchro variant. There is so much you can do with ABC. You just got to play with your pieces. Get it? Play with your pieces. So ABC coming in at Rogue. Emancipator is going to be right there with them as another Rogue deck. I think they just get outclassed by other combo decks of the format, so they kind of fall by the wayside. The deck's actually scary when it pops off, but for now it's going to be Rogue. Make sure you guys stick around, because we're doing our top 10 decks of the COVID era, where we're going to show sample deck lists and just talk about the 10 best decks from, well, pretty much like April of 2020 until, February-ish, March-ish of 2021. Kind of that year in review. We'll probably go like April through March, so a full 12-month span of the true COVID era while things were pretty much shut down. And I'm telling you right now, Emancipator, it's a little higher up on our top 10 list, because anyone who played full power rocks or against it probably has a little bit of PTSD. But for now, Emancipator is a Rogue strategy. Eldritch, they're going to come in a little bit higher at our tier 3. I don't think the deck is that great. The recursion and advantage that it gains off the floating isn't really any better than some of the best decks of the format. Now, like, that's really where it shined before, when it just kept recurring everything. It floated everything, it outpaced you, it out-resourced you, it abused that synchro engine, which again, synchro Eldritch, guys, it's on the top 10 list, as well as at least one other Eldritch variant. How many Eldritch variants do you think made the top 10 decks of COVID? Moving forward, we get our first tier 1 deck, Drytron. I really don't see much Drytron on Dueling Book, and I don't know if it's because people just don't play it like too much or what, but I see Tri-Brigade and Salamangreat like everywhere. It's ridiculous. I play Sabre Dragons, so I'm okay with both of those matchups. However, Drytron, I don't see it too often though, but man, this deck it's probably the best like true combo deck of the format. It just really pops off. It's pretty crazy. Prank Kids, I guess, are kind of combo-y. I'd almost put them in like a mid-range leaning combo, because they, definitely do combo off, that's for sure. But they're kind of like that, not like they can kind of control the game too in a way. Earth Machine, another good strong rogue deck. Friend Nathan is playing the deck, and I think he's doing actually decently well. Maybe we can get some replays and throw them up for you guys. But Earth Machine, you know, I don't know the deck the best, but I know they can actually do some pretty good things going first and second, and they have crazy amount of starters, and on top of that they have a lot of room for like a toolbox. So the deck is actually pretty good. The grindy, like, you don't want to get into a grind game with this deck from what I have heard. Again, I am not the best with it, but thank goodness LP's banned, right? Except Dragon Link is still arguably a top 5 deck of the format. They're in mine, at least. I think they're one of the better tier 2 decks of this format. The deck is just, you know, Seal Savage, Hand Trap, Seal Savage, Titing, the recursion that they can come back with. They don't have to put out this unbreakable turn 1 board and just win the game that way. They actually play a more mid-range style now, and they can out-resource you, they can OTK you, or they can just, like, you know, I guess that's kind of the two things that they do, or they just make their board, you know, and if they really pop off, then you're probably not going to win that game. At Ignister, another tier 2 deck. So this one is more the middle tier 2. I think actually I only have a few, so I guess we're just gonna say they're the tier 2 deck, guys. You know, putting out that like 4 to 6k towers of a beast in the arrival at Ignister, really good. They get the one in the graveyard that can even negate a card on field if you try to do something, obviously being completely unaffected, and the fact that they have to beat over it, and they can play like 15 plus hand traps if they really want. The deck is pretty good, but it's got its downfalls, and I don't think it's quite as strong as our tier 1 decks, but I do think this is a deck that you can win tournaments with. And well, in Dragon Rider games I've seen it win tournaments, so I know this deck can win tournaments. Guru, more specifically like Guru Dragoon, it's probably my favorite, like, back row heavy helmet, if you will, deck of the format. I guess it's kind of between that, Eldritch, and Altergeist. But like, I don't know, I actually don't mind Guru. I don't typically play There Can Be Only One or Summon Limit because I don't like die roll cards like those. I would rather play cards that, well, you know, are good going first or going second. So that's kind of my thought on that. However, obviously, those who tend to do well with Guru tend to play There Can Be Only One. I think it's more out of habit for playing it, and it's just, if you play this deck, you play this card, one of those types of deals, and people just really haven't tried it, playing it without it too much. Tri Brigade, best deck of the format. Probably, yeah, more than likely. Seeing so much play on dueling books, seeing so much success in remote duels, in the YCSs, in the LCS, in the DCS, like, this deck it's pretty good. I mean, like, the deck's pretty good. Consistent, it can play through hand traps decently well. Obviously sometimes that hand trap, like the imperm on their normal summon effect, sometimes that'll be enough to end the turn, but it kind of depends. I think the deck is pretty strong. Nibiru can definitely hurt it, but like Appaloosa, the Ancient Warriors link to playing hand traps or traps. Revolt is just a crazy card that then Omen banishing, like, target banish, well, not target, but banishing like mid combo is just like so strong. That's why ABC has a chance. Like, if they can do it at the right time and have another disruption or two, that banish can really hurt. Infernables took everyone by surprise kind of at the LCS when they made top 4. They almost topped the DCS the following weekend, and well, I thought they'd see a little more play online after that, but obviously the deck is better than Adamantipator when we're looking at these types of combo decks. It has a little bit of success there, and this is a deck I really don't want people to pick up on, because I'm not saying it's better than Dragon Link or stronger than Dragon Link, but it's another deck that I don't want to have to play against a lot of these like combo decks. Yeah, like, that's kind of, I like where the format's at, because I can kind of have my deck set up the way it is and pretty much handle the majority of decks between Sabre Dragons' natural advantage, or just being able to play like Nibiru, Drone Lockbird, Phantasme, like Forbidden Lance. Card's crazy, and we're actually going to cover it in our top 5 hidden gem, if you will, for tech cards of the format. Invoke Shaddoll Dogmatica. They fall from the tier 1 status. I don't remember where we had them back in July, but they are going to be they're a strong tier 2 deck. Like, there's no denying that they're not a really good tier 2 deck. The Invoked engine is obviously consistent, it's reliable. The Dogmatica engine is very splashable and helps if you don't open your main engine. Well, it provides a pretty good play, and the fact that Nadir Servant, send the El Shaddai App Cologne and then go into your window plays abusing cards like Schism is just really good. And then you have cards like Shaddai Fusion that can just break boards on their own. Invoke Shaddai Dogmatica. I think it's actually a pretty fun deck to play, and it's a really strong deck as well. Madolche, kind of like Earth Machine, I'm not super popular in the deck, and actually I haven't played against it in a while. I know they can OTK you like crazy, and I forget their going first strategy. It's not like a hand rip deck, that's water that I'm thinking of. I know someone watching this, why are they in here if you're not going to say exactly what they do? Well, honestly guys, it's because I don't exactly know what their going first strategy is. I know they can spam out all kinds of monsters and go from there. However, I do know I've seen them successfully topping these events, and guess what that means? That means they're a rogue deck, and it's a deck that, like myself, you should be prepared for, and probably go figure out what they do, because I'm going to have to do that too. Mech Knights. Ooh, tempted to put them up to tier 3, but I think as far as pure Mech Knights go, I think they're just probably one of the better rogue options of the format. Watch your columns, guys. Mech Knights, do not sleep on them. They even have like Mech Orcus too. I think pure Mech Knights are a bit better there, and arguably, or between Invoked Mech and pure Mech, I would almost take pure Mech Knights actually. I know a couple guys who actually do really, really well with the deck, and I mean they just kind of justify exactly what I said about this. A good pilot with any of these decks can see a lot of success. Sabre Dragons, we can call it bias. I've heard that from actually a decent amount of people, which it very well could be, but thanks to James topping the North American YCS and the fact that there's a handful of these deck players near the top near the back end of top 200, and I mean me and James are both working on getting there, but we are both very busy, so we're not quite to that top 200 range, but we are getting close. I think Sabre Dragons really are a strong deck, and I'm going to say here why at the end of the video once we have all of our tiers up here and try to justify it, I guess, from my perspective a little bit better. PK Fire, tier 3, the deck, not only did it take second place at the LCS, this deck I've actually seen popping up a lot more and more, and even in Dragon Rider games, it's doing well in current format, it's doing really well in Rogue format. Like, this deck is just really slept on. I've seen a lot of people, I know Locals isn't the best example, but a lot of people taking down their Locals with PK Fire. And the deck is just really, really strong. And if you're not ready for like Fog Blades and Dragoon and the pop-off Rusty and the Dark Requiem, Dark Requiem, the rank up, like, they have a lot of different options and routes that they can branch off of. And if you're not ready for it, they are going to take you by surprise. Not to spoil it, but our final tier 1 deck, Prank Kids, I'd put them actually above Drytron, I think, and I think they're pretty close with Tri Brigade. I like that they are, well, one, super consistent. Like, what do you have? 3 of each kid, 3 plays, that's 15 starters. You can play Poly, you can play Parallel Exceed, you can play Triple Tactics Talent, 3 Pandemonium, or like even Desires too. Like, all these cards help you play through Ash Blossom or that Ghostmeister, the Skullmeister on your first kid in the graveyard, and they're pretty resilient at getting through that stuff. Double Raigeki, having the back row, being able to have their cards protected from battle or card effect depending on which fusions, and if they use Bow Wow and etc. Depending on the effects they use that turn, getting the different bits of protection to know that you can't beat them, and then on their turn they're probably gonna win. Prank Kids are not only a really, really fun deck, probably my favorite out of the tier 1 and 2 decks. That's my favorite deck to play. But yeah, after Sabre Dragon, they might be my favorite out of all these decks actually. But Prank Kid's really, really fun to play, and the deck's actually really good too. And well, it's kind of good for time too. Have you had Dropsies or not Fansies? Wow. Yeah, I love playing the deck, guys. Have you ever had Fansies burn you for 738? Yeah, like, that's where we're at right now. Have you ever had your Lampsies hit for 500? Moving forward, though, ooh. Salamangreat, oh man. Originally, I was gonna have them at tier 3, but I haven't really been seeing a whole lot for the representation they've had. Like, they might be seeing a little bit more success than, say, Infernoble or Sabre Dragon or Guru, but they also have like 10 times the representation, and they're barely seeing more success than some of these decks. So I'm going to factor that in and put them as a rogue deck. Success, obviously you need representation to be a good deck too, but if you have too much representation and not enough results, it actually works against you than your reputation does. Sky Striker, I'm going to probably put him as probably the worst tier 2 deck. If we had to rank these, we'll switch them around. So far, this is where we're at. I think Sky Striker is probably the worst tier 2 deck. They're a little bit behind Ignister. I'd take Ignister over Sky Striker, but I do think they're better than the tier 3 and rogue decks. Obviously, that's why we're having them up at tier 2. I don't think there's too much question that they're not tier 1, and that Invoked, Dogmatica, Shaddoll, Dragon Link are just both way better than Sky Striker, so we're going to leave them as like the back end of tier 2. Dinosaur. So the deck that's kind of disappeared, if you will. I shouldn't say that. It's seen success in a lot of the big tournaments. Actually, has been getting one top in like each tournament, but it doesn't have that much representation. And since it's not, it's the opposite of Salad, where Salad has all kinds of representation and a decent bit of success to back it up. Dino has like very little representation, but about the same tops as Salamangreat does. It's pretty similar. So I am going to put Dinosaur as tier 3. I prefer actually pure going second dinos over the scrap build. I think there's way too many hand traps in the format for the scrap build, and that just kind of works against them. Grand Maju's actually been all over the place lately, seeing it all the time. It's a really strong rogue strategy. I think right now is not a bad time for going second decks, because there's not really a deck that's just like, oh, you went second, you lost, okay. Like, even Drytron, like, they're probably the most like that deck, but say, Grand Maju, there's a pretty good chance that you opened a Kaiju, so you can, just Kaiju the ultimateness. And I've actually seen so many Drytrons, so many, I hardly see the deck at all, but the last like 4 Drytron players I've played against played Perfection instead, which I think really works into Grand Maju's favor that much more, because they can't negate all the summons and the big body spam. But anyway, if you can like bait out the negates and then just normal summon your Grand Maju, you can punch over one monster and then win the game that way. Obviously, if they go like an IP and then they can use the Beatrice, go into like a Unicorn and spin it, they're going to have plays for that, especially game 2 or 3. If they, happen to get one punch game 1, they're going to be able to play around stuff like that. But I do think that Grand Maju is in a pretty decent spot. Like I said, any going second decks, your Dinosaurs, your Sabre Dragons, your Mech Knights, like, I think they all have a decent chance going second. Altergeist, I'm going to put them up as tier 3 as well. Haven't really seen too many of them. I've seen a few tops here and there. I don't know. I definitely can't put them any higher. Would I put them at Rogue? No, because I think I'd take Altergeist over pretty much the Rogue selection here. But they're right around in that border. Even tier 3 to Rogue, there's really not a whole lot that separates them. It's kind of just what we as players think on a personal basis. Tier 1 and 2 are usually pretty defined. Then once you get to that 3 in Rogue, it's kind of whoever you talk to where things end up. Pure Zodiac or Zeus Turbo, again, it's a deck that, not having Trident hurts the going first play a little bit, but you can play going second Zodiac, and you can main all kinds of like hand traps. You can main going second power cards. You can main a bunch of traps if you want, so you can either set them going first or going second. You can use them to set them and then start breaking boards. But Zeus is just such a crazy strong card that Zodiac, it's tier 3, no question. Obviously there's Tri-Brigade Zodiac as well, but this talking just pure Zodiac down here. Virtual Worlds, I actually have them as my 4th best deck of the format, making whether it's like Shen, Chuchi, Crystal Wing, and then either Kaliga or Dragoon. The deck is its biggest downfall, I think, is that it falls victim to some of the similar cards that the top decks do. So by default, people are playing them. Like Lancia, like Droll and Lockbird. Like, these are two that hurt this deck as well. Nibiru too, another one. So like, I think that's the biggest downfall of Virtual World right now, is that a lot of their counters are already pretty popular in the meta, and on top of that, the next biggest downfall is probably itself. This is probably, out of the top at least 6 decks, I think this deck loses to itself more than the other 5 do. I think pretty much anyone can agree with me on that. But anyway, first time I think I've had tier 3 bigger than Rogue, but I did cut out a handful of decks because, again, I didn't want to sit here forever talking, but I think we had a pretty long enough discussion. Let me know down below what decks are too high, what decks are too low, what decks did I leave out because, well, we cannot fit them all. What decks do you think belong where? Let me know down below, and again, come check out that tournament, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's for a very good cause. Until next time, take care.